Now, when studying for your trial exams, it can just seem like there's just so much content that you need to prepare for. Where do you even begin? In this video, I share with you my tips on how to ace your HSC Maths Trials. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I share with you the worst mistake students make when studying. Let's get into it. Now, here's my first tip. Using your topic or syllabus sheet. Not all schools test every single topic in their trial exam, so make sure you know which ones are in there. Once you know that, go through your topic sheet and do one of three things. Either tick, circle, or cross each one. A tick represents that you're pretty confident in that area. A circle is, well, you know some of the basic examples, but you're a bit unsure of the harder ones. And a cross is, I just have no idea. Now, it's important to note, there's no point just going through and ticking them all if you're not confident. Really, the only person you're cheating is yourself. And if you're not too sure whether to tick, circle, or cross something, go through a past HSC paper or past trial paper and actually do the same thing. But this time you'll be able to see the types of questions that are in there and whether or not you're confident in those areas. Now, as you're going through and revising, ideally by the end of it, everything would be a tick. But this is what I want you to think about, really, what is the purpose of a trial? Teachers writing a trial want to know a student's holistic understanding of the senior course, knowing their strengths and weaknesses from a whole variety of topics. So when we're writing that naturally tends towards a breadth rather than a depth of the topics taught. Now, that's not to say there won't be those band 6 type questions which require high level understanding, but when I'm trying to revise through and I'm looking at those tick, circles and crosses, for a trial exam, that leads me to prioritize changing all my crosses into circles at the very least, so I have that basic level of understanding, so I can attack maybe the majority of those questions. Alright, studying. Now that we've actually identified which topics we need to focus on, how do we actually study for them? Everyone's going to have a variety of different techniques and strategies that they use to study. Here's a few of mine. Once I've identified a topic which I've crossed that I have no real understanding of, what I'll do is I'll go back to the textbook and I'll see those basic examples. Something that's really helpful is at the beginning of those chapters, they usually have some worked examples that you can read through. Once I've built up my confidence in those types of questions, then I move on to those past HSC or trial questions. Because it's really important that you actually expose yourself to what kind of questions they can actually ask you in an exam. There's often a big gap between those textbook questions and those questions that you see in your tests. The next tip is my mistakes list and my tips and tricks sheet. Think about this question: why do we make mistakes? Obviously, because we're human, I guess. But the harder question to answer is, how do we avoid making those mistakes? One thing that I do before an exam, as I'm actually studying, I'll write up a mistakes list for myself. Every time I make a mistake, I'll jot that down. And just before I go into the exam, that's going to be one thing that I'm going to be reading. And secondly, a tips and tricks sheet can help you a lot. Whether it's different methods to approach a question that are faster, or using certain techniques in situations, or even just writing things more clearly in your own words so that you can understand them better. Now, what about in the exam? Now, in HSC Maths exams, you're allocated about 1.5 minutes per mark. So it's absolutely vital that you use your time effectively. One place where you can do this is in the reading time. In the reading time, it's a perfect opportunity to get an overall view of that test paper from all the questions, and also have a think about some of the multiple choice questions in that time. And it allows you to get a heads up in some of those easier questions as well in section 2, so you know how to start it when you get into it. Now, just keep in mind, some people don't really like looking towards the back of the exam because it can sometimes throw them off if they see a harder question, and that could set a precedent for the rest of the exam as well. So that's something to keep in mind if you feel like that might affect you. Also, there's always a big struggle for students when they think about if they're stuck on a question, is it better to move on, or is it better to keep at it if you think you're about to get an answer? And really, I think this is going to be a case-by-case kind of situation. If you think it's going to be worth spending more than that allocated 1.5 minutes per mark on that question because you're approaching a solution, then keep at it. But if you're just kind of hitting a roadblock, then sometimes it's worthwhile just moving on and coming back to it later, because subconsciously you're still thinking about that question, but maybe you'll see a new approach once you've addressed some other questions later on and come back to it. Now, here's a little bonus tip for you all. While many people, when they get their exams back, focus on the mark that they get, which is, to be fair, pretty important, this is actually your prime opportunity to improve and build upon your skills. Because rather than putting that maths trial into a drawer somewhere or add them to your already growing piles of paper, what I would recommend is look through the mistakes that you've made. Think about why you've made them, and actually have a go at them again in exam conditions. Put away any other distractions and put away those work solutions. See if you can actually reproduce those questions where you made those mistakes. And this is, again, a great opportunity to open up dialogue with your teacher and work with them to help improve those weaknesses and build upon them. So I hope that video helped you out with some tips on how to ace your HSC Maths Trials. If you liked the video, leave me a like and subscribe. Or if you have any questions you want answered, just leave a comment as well. I also have a whole nother series on different studying techniques, like how to prepare for assessment tasks or how to make the most of your HSC holidays. So feel free to check those out as well.